record of our chair and vice chair are out. And so I got appointed to lead tonight's meeting. It's on. Can you hear me okay? All right, first, roll call. Kevin Skaggs. Bill Burkhalter.
Jim Newman.
Next on the agenda is approval of last meeting's minutes. This is the December 6th of 22 meeting. Anything in the minutes we need to edit? So moved.
Second.
All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? No. Thank you. Minutes are approved. Next is confirmation of the agenda. Does anything need to be adjusted to the agenda? We have 2 applications to hear. Can you adjust anything?
I don't see any. Approved.
All right. Consider the agenda confirmed, I guess. All right, so we have 2 applications, and the first one is ZV 23-001, a request by Robert Harris for a variance from section 4.2, table 4-1, accessory uses and structures, setbacks of the North Augusta Development Code to allow for accessory structure and a front yard setback. The request affects approximately 8.21 acres of zone R7 small lot single-family residential located at 1800 Flamingo Road, TPN 006-14-02-001.
Mr. Chairman, this is a request by Mr. Harris. He owns an 8.35 acre parcel at 800 Flamingo Road. He currently has his dwelling on the property. You can see that his dwelling up in the top right. He also has a granny house on the granny house toward the bottom right, toward the bottom of the parcel, and he wants to put a garage on the property side where alignment would be, back behind those yards. Here you go. That's the one I'm looking for. You see the granny house there at the bottom, the main house existing structure at the top, and the barn would go in the front. Since this is addressed off Flamingo Road, everything from the front plane of the house forward, all of that acreage would be considered front yard. And so he's probably got 6-7 acres of front yard. And he's requesting, and that's the reason for the variance, because it's in front of the house. Even though you have that distance there between the property line and his house, it's still the same rules that would apply as if this was a ordinary type subdivision. So that is the request. And any questions?
Are there other conditions in the table met for this?
Yes, sir.
It's just the location's the only issue.
Location's the only issue.
How far is it off that property line or the back of the other houses on Lynette Street?
I have not seen that measurement. I would ask the applicant. The applicant's not here, but his contractor is.
I thought I read 60 feet.
That's what it looks like on the map to me.
That's fine. I
It
just make
is.
sure there's enough, buffer and so forth between.
He wants to construct a new 768 square foot single story, about 60 feet from the southern property line.
Any other questions, Mr. Paradise?
No, sir.
Now, at this point we'll start the public hearing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'll start the public hearing now. All right,
Mr. Gilchrist is here for the applicant.
okay. You got anything to say? Add to it? Come on down. I'm supposed to swear you in too. Just go. Raise your right hand and say, you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
State your name and address.
Name and address.
Name
yes.
and address.
Matthew Gilchrist for 1800 Flamingo Road.
Okay.
When you come down, there's a, you can go back on one of those. Yep, right there. You see where so Bunting is that white coming out right there. There's a cul-de-sac that comes straight down off of Bunting. And Flamingo is that small little road that has kind of like a L shape going into his property. Come down, there's a large tree buffer, probably 60, maybe 60, 50, 60 feet between, in that cul-de-sac right there that lines his property. And then you come out, so those, you can't even see those homes from his property, and especially where the barn's gonna be. And you go down his driveway. When you first come in, there's a granny house on the right, and then you go down, and then the barn will be off on the left. It's just to hold RV, golf cart, stuff like that, just to keep it from the weather. So, but it is technically in front of his house, because the way the house was arranged, it was built right off the greenway, so you have that bluff on the back, so you kind of see that pretty frontage in the back instead of all the way up near Bunting Road. Well, it's off of Flamingo, so I don't think it'll disrupt the neighbors or anything. And he's gonna build it with like a brown roof, so it'll blend into the property as well. Y'all have any questions for me?
Do you know whether, I see where the proposed barn location is, and I'm assuming the front of it's gonna be looking more toward the driveway. Do you think he will intend to leave a buffer there of trees? Because it's 60 feet, it should be plenty of room
Yeah.
for a buffer.
Oh, yeah, the trees are already, there's already a buffer there with the trees that we're
Right.
taking down.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Because the ones that don't live on Linnet Loop are the only potential people that he would have an idea that was back there.
Right.
You have to be a North Augusta native from the early 50s to even know that that place exists.
Yeah, this was pretty impressive piece of property. I didn't know it existed.
It's pretty. It has 2 ponds on it that he keeps up and swims in and fishes. when he wants to keep the property nice.
I don't have anything.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
All right.
And I will open it up to the audience. Anybody else want to come down and speak for or against the project? Have any questions? Okay. I will close the public hearing. We'll begin our consideration of it. Bear with me, I got this lot I have to read here. Okay, a variance may be granted in an individual case of unnecessary hardship if the Board of Zoning Appeals makes and explains in writing all the following. 1, unnecessary hardship exists. 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. 5, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Number 6, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13 signs regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals may also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available, and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. We're not doing signs on this one. Sorry, you had to listen to all that. 6 would not apply. 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be A, to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district, B, to extend physically a nonconforming use of land, C, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Number 9, the fact that a property may be utilized more profitably a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. And number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. And based on these findings of fact, the Board of Zoning Adjustment may approve of conditions or deny a request. And we go through all 10 of these questions, and then if you have to answer in affirmative for all 10 of them, or else the variance request is denied. Okay. All right, so I'll go ahead and start. Number 1, an unnecessary hardship exists. And then staff note says the applicant states that without the barn, personal vehicles will be exposed to the elements and that an aesthetically pleasing structure will allow for proper storage. The applicant also states that the property is not visible to neighbors or adjacent streets. Also, staff notes that due to the existing location of the residence at the rear corner of the lot and pond of the center of the site, the applicant is not able to meet the rear yard requirement for accessory structures.
Don't have any problem.
No problem with that one,
I do
sir.
not either, so we're good with that one. Number 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Staff notes say the applicant states that the property has an S-shaped driveway with significant acreage compared to the small lots in the surrounding Lyndhurst neighborhood. It is unique that the house was built at the rear of the property instead of towards the front of the lot, and that the residence is mostly hidden by existing vegetation. Staff notes also say the site has existing development on the site. There are some restrictions to development based on the topography and existing residential structure. Any comments there?
I would agree with
Yes.
that, especially with the topo. when you
Yeah.
look
Yep.
at it.
I'm in agreement too, so we're
Yes,
good. Number 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The notes say the applicant states that the orientation of the existing house toward the rear of the lot creates privacy from the surrounding neighborhood, and that the other homes in Lyndhurst are oriented to be closer to the street on small lots. Staff notes that these conditions are unique to this site.
I'm good.
Y'all
I
good?
agree with that.
I'm good too, so we're in agreement. Number 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And the applicant states it is not possible to build a structure behind the primary residence and that the code does not take into consideration the unique lot. Staff also notes that restricting the location of the barn renders the majority of the lot unusable. I would agree with that too. Number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be of substantial detriment to the adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale, and the creation of potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. The notes say the applicant states that the property is secluded from other homes in the Lyndhurst neighborhood and will not be noticeable to neighbors. Staff notes that proposed use will not be out of scale with other accessory uses in the area or create excessive noise, light, traffic, or any incompatible late-night activity.
I would agree with all that.
Good? I'm good too. Number 6 does not apply. So number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance, the effect of which would be A, to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in a zoning district. Accessory dwellings are allowed in all residential districts, subject to Article 4, so good there. Number B, to extend physically a non-conforming use of land. The existing single-family residence currently conforms to the development code, so we're good there. And number C, in item C, to change the zoning and district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. And we're not rezoning. No rezoning is being requested. So we're good there. Number 7 is good. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Notes say the main residence is already on site and no additional self-imposed hardships are needed. Bless you. You good?
Yep.
Good you? I'm good with that too. Number 9, the fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance as a single-family residential property. The property primary concern is not profit motivated. Good with that?
See that fine.
I'm good with that, so 9's good. Good with it. And number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building, structure, or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. You did have one note here. Given the main residence is pre-existing, the setbacks are not applicable. However, the other requirements of the North Augusta Development Code should be met as closely as possible. And the applicant consents to construct the barn in a general area shown in the application documents. I did have one question on that. Can you go into the setbacks not being applicable? Is that worded right?
The setbacks are not going to be an issue here. He's going to meet the setbacks. The issue is being in the front yard.
So do we even need to
No,
bother with that condition then?
no.
So that we only would have one condition, that'd be the last sentence. The applicant consents to the construct barn in the general area shown in the application document.
Correct.
I would agree, and maybe add to that, to leave about at least a 25-foot buffer. If he's 60 feet, if it's 60 feet from the property line, that shouldn't be an issue, should it, Matt? So, I would add that, if that's agreeable with
A
everybody.
minimum of 25-foot
Yeah.
buffer. So if he does, adjust at the discretion of,
Okay, now whenever you say buffer, that means that
Just
he,
Is that a setback?
unbothered land,
undisturbed.
application says it's gonna be 60 feet in, and it looks like there's a lot of already
Trees and-
vegetation there. What I was talking about would be, leave a place that's not cut 25 feet or 30 feet, something like that. It still gives them,
Undisturbed in that area.
yeah.
Do I need to put undisturbed in there? Undisturbed buffer?
Yeah.
Is that the whole property line, or is it
Just with
just,
this
just
barn,
where the building,
with this barn.
okay. All right. All 10 are in the affirmative, so Wes asked me to read the motion if we got to that point. Is that okay with y'all?
yes,
Is that,
I have no problem.
okay. Based on the findings previously discussed and voted on, I move that application number ZV 23-001, Harris Barn, a request by Robert Harris for a variance pursuant to section 4.2 and Table 4-1 of the North Augusta Development Code to allow accessory structure in the front yard be granted with the following conditions, and there are two. Number one, the applicant consents to construct the barn in the general area shown in the application documents. And number two, a minimum 25-foot undisturbed buffer will exist between the property line and the barn.
Second.
Yes.
All right, got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Any opposed? No. Variance is approved.
Mr. Skaggs, if I may, if I could get those two copies.
These? See that put out actually. Need this? Bear with, I gotta get my act together.
All right, so back with you.
All right, that's. Here we go. All right, our second application is ZV 23-002, a request by Beyond Be Ye Holy Ministries Incorporated for a variance from the North Augusta Development Code, Article 13, signs, Section 13.8.3.L.I and 13.8.3.L.II. Signage allowed for non-residential districts and uses. Electronic reader boards district and sign area of the North Augusta Development Code to allow for an electronic reader board for an institutional use in a residential zoning district that also exceeds 50% of the sign area. The request affects approximately 0.43 acres located at 1117 Seymour Drive, Zone R10, medium lot, single-family residential, number TPN 007-08-10-001.
Yes.
Introduce this project then.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. This is a request from Be Ye Holy. It is a church that is at the corner of Old Edgefield Road and Seymour Drive. It's addressed off of Seymour Drive. This gives you more of a visual of where it's located at. They are requesting a electronic message center sign. There is a should be a graphic in your packet that shows you the dimensions of the sign is 8x4. This is zoned R10. An electronic message center is not allowed in an R10 zoning district. It's restricted to particular commercial districts. This is a busy road that it fronts on. The other thing that they're requesting a variance for is a 8x4 sign, and I don't quite have the measurements to it, but if you look at the rendering, you will see that the electronic message center portion exceeds the required maximum square footage of electronic message center of the sign. That square footage is 50% of the face of the sign. This one is a little bit more than that, so they will need a variance for that as well. I've talked with the pastor about this application, and he wanted to move forward with it. I suggested to him that there's a lot of things that they feel like they can do with this electronic message center as far as pushing out information and helping the church grow and having the community access their events. One of the suggestions that I made to him was to talk to his neighbors, see what they thought about it. And you will see where there's a signature, there's a form in there where several of the homeowners have signed that they agree to it, that they have no objection to it. I would say that two ladies came by this afternoon, Mrs. Reynolds, and she lives at the corner. Their house is adjacent to the park. It's about 75 feet as the crow flies property line to property line, between 150 to 200 feet from where the sign would be to the closest point on the house. They both live in that same house. They were both opposed to it. I asked them to put that in writing so that it's not Tommy Paradise saying this, but that, this is what they said. And because of the lateness, we had copies made and put it at the dais for you, and that's the copies I gave the preacher. That was the first he's seen of it as well. And we did have another lady call about it this morning. I don't know if she's going to be here to speak to it or not.
So you got two separate letters, is that right?
Correct, from the same house.
Oh, they're in the same house.
Yes, sir. Sisters.
Now, once again, a couple of things. This is on the just the opposite side. Is this on the park side of Old Edgefield, or is it on the other side
It's on the
of
school
Seymour?
side.
Okay,
It's across from the park
okay.
and down the road, 3 or 4 lots.
There actually look like 2 lots, or parts of 2 lots that are directly across, and I'm assuming, I've been down there just recently, but I'm assuming those are lots with houses on them.
Correct. There's houses. That area of the road is built out.
What about the new development code? Would that area change to allow these signs?
No, sir. And remember, that is a code that is in progress. So
That's understandable.
It is subject to change, but as it stands, the draft as it stands today
Okay.
Would not allow it there either.
And Mr. Paradise, is there some restriction on the frequency with which these signs can change because of the flash effect? Or am I?
There is, in the new development code, as it's written today, there would be actually a time, 10-second time limit. That's kind of the standard time between changes. We don't have anything written in our code, but they're not allowed to flash, pulse, dance. There's a lot of things that these signs can do that we say, that's nice, but you can't do that in North Augusta.
And how far roughly is this from the school sign?
You see the blue
Yes, sir.
there at the bottom, so 1, 2, 3,
So just, okay.
probably about 800 feet. Roughly 800 to 1,000 feet, just measuring lots.
Yeah.
Is the intention that this sign be oriented, when I say parallel with Old Edgefield Road, what I mean is if I'm driving up Old Edgefield Road or down, either way, and I'm looking directly at the sign?
I would think it'd be, and that's one to ask the applicant, I would think that it would be, since it's I believe it's a two-faced sign, it would be perpendicular
Perpendicular?
to the road, so that as you're driving towards it, you're seeing the side of it. You're looking at it like that.
Right.
I got a question for you.
Gives more credence to the adjoining neighbors, I understand their view. Anyway, it's just a comment.
So what sign is allowed for a church?
And I thought you would ask that. and I should
I'm a
have
little
that ready
sensitive
for
to
you.
churches and signs. Past experiences.
Understand. It comes down to the use, identification signage, attached to the building, flush, not obstruct more than 4 inches, 2 square feet. I think there's something in here that allows the planning director to determine what it would be based, if it were in a commercial entity. I can tell you that would be about 32 square feet and not illuminated or externally illuminated.
So a freestanding sign, is that allowed?
That's what I'm trying to find, sir.
I recall, I knew where this was because I had driven by and had seen the name on the sign before, but I didn't see any sign out there today on that property. I don't know whether one's been removed or not. But I guess we can ask.
We'll ask the applicant here in a minute. I think you're right, I just saw 2 posts in the ground.
I am so used to going to the commercial part. Freestanding signs. By the book, you're allowed a maximum area of 2 square feet for identification signs on a freestanding sign.
That's a yard sale sign.
Accessory signs, subdivision project identification, that's 32 square feet. Multifamily districts and uses is 50. I would say the maximum, like I said, I think I've got that other one in here that I'd go with the 32. But by the book, for identification signs only, is 2 square feet,
But
and
that's
that's on
gotta
the
be,
wall.
that's gotta be attached to the building, is that
That's-
right?
mhm.
What about with this being a corner lot?
Yeah, that wouldn't matter.
I thought you could have signage on both sides.
You can, but you have to stay within the square footage.
Which I think the square footage, like I said, is 32.
No, for a freestanding sign, under the planning director pulls in what signage use you would use for an area like this. I would say the freestanding sign would be 32 square feet and externally illuminated, which means spotlights up on it are not illuminated at all.
So a sign that's like every other church you see around, it's got freestanding with the name of the church there and maybe a come worship with us message or something like that would not be allowed there.
It would probably need to come to y'all, yes, especially if it's going to be internally illuminated. And part of that is then you have gives the neighbors an opportunity to know what's coming and to voice their concerns. And I am sensitive to churches and residential areas as well, but you also have to give respect to residents as well.
Right. So if we go through this and if it doesn't pass, then you got a whole year before you can request another variance applicant, is that right?
For the same application, yes, sir.
What,
In other words, if it's the same application, if, the way I understand it now, if there was an application where, say, all right, they applied for this sign, it fails. Well, they could come back in and ask for a variance for a 32 square foot wooden sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that's not the same sign that they ask for, you know, that's a different
Okay,
ask.
they don't have to wait a whole year then. Okay.
I think it goes back to the ask.
Okay.
You can't ask for the same thing.
But at the same time, which some of the, you'll answer most of these questions, there was a sign up there, correct? And it's been taken down,
I don't know.
or, so I, but my question, let's just say, like I said, there's a post still there. I mean, if we tell him, you know, no, can he put his sign that was originally back up, or is he gonna have to, since it's down, come back? Because, I mean, you can look at, you know, pull up Google Maps and you can see the sign sitting right there.
He would have to comply with the ordinance that's in place today.
We're ready for the public hearing.
Yes, sir.
Y'all are.
Okay, thank you. And I'll open the public hearing, and I guess can the applicant start off, come down? And I'll have to swear in both of you, so. If you raise your right hand, you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
And both of you state your name and address, please.
My name's Michael Edwards, 275 South Oak Bel Air Road.
Joe Newsom, 532 Marble Falls Drive, Grovetown, Georgia.
Is there anything else you want to add to this application?
Yes, as it was mentioned by Mr. Newman, we did have a sign up there before. 2020, when everything shut down, looked like everything went haywire. That was the time we got that Easter storm that blew our sign down, which was a wooden type sign, antiquated, if you would say, and everything. So since that sign been down, I came back to he's the church administrator plus the business administrator, and the church members asked what do they want to do. Do they want to go back with old type of sign, or do they want to go with something more, you know, updated? And they all voted to go with something updated and everything else. And so that's when we started pursuing putting up the LED sign. But then, like I said, everything shut down. The municipal court shut down, everything shut down, and so we put everything on hold so we can properly address any questions or concerns concerning putting the sign up. We're asking for the variance, and I did receive the 2 letters from the assistants that stays across. We went to their house twice. They weren't home. As we presented, the other neighbors around was in supportive of it. Long as the sign, we hit the sign to cut off at 10 o'clock at night. They was in supportive of it because that's what we told them we'd do. So it wouldn't affect them at night. We'll have the LED sign turn off at night. And the school sign is 0.1 miles from ours. And so I told them we'd do the same compliant, like, you know, with the school sign. We'll have it cut off at 10 o'clock at night. So it won't shine into your house, because I think that's was one of the concerns that they had on here. So it won't shine into the house, and we're doing all we can to maintain a good relationship with our neighbors as well. So, like I said, we knocked on that door twice, and they weren't home and everything else. But we did present to the board here, that's the other ones that were home, that were fine with us putting the sign up and everything. So that's what we're asking for, the variance, that they'd be able to put the LED sign up, Mike.
Okay, yeah, Mike Edwards. Our goal is to enhance the, fabric of the neighborhood, not degrade it. So definitely being respectful to all of our neighbors. I know personally I went around to all of the homes in the area, this home specifically, 742, but over 80% of the homes in the area, they did, even the ones that was right across the street, they did say, hey, look, give me the opinion, yes, no problem. We only use this sign for just basically advertising the church itself, not from a profit standpoint with nonprofit. It's just the more fabric of the neighborhood. We want to strengthen it, and also basically be able to inform the neighborhood about upcoming events or anything of that nature. Now, the sign itself, it does have a variable on the illums, so we don't have to have this sign blasting where it's going to be, like someone's shining a bright light in your home. I heard the question earlier in the context of the position of the sign. It would be perpendicular to the road, similar to the post I think that you've seen out. The sign would be perpendicular, so you would see it going, either way on North Edgefield Road. For the neighbors here, I think we are, would be in compliance with any restrictions on timing. We proposed 10 PM, but if the board would be considerable, favorable to this, we're even open to other times. But right now, we're saying 10. But if there's some other restrictions that you guys are proposing.
So we can hear you on the tape.
Okay, absolutely. These mics, I love them. Yeah, good times. But in reference to the timing, we want to be respectful to all of our neighbors, to include 742. We didn't get her. I know I stopped by myself twice. The sister was there. The homeowner was not there, so she did not want to comment. And we're respectful. We understand that. Everybody, they have their views, and we want to be respectful of that. So if we can, that's really all I have, unless you have some questions for us.
I think we're good.
The existing sign, how many square feet do you think that was? The one that got blown down?
I would not have a clue, to be honest with you. That was back in 2009 when we put it out.
Oh, my goodness, okay.
And so to me, the storm does us a favor.
So those two posts have been there for,
The post, two posts.
wow,
in there, yeah.
okay. All right.
Yes, sir. So like I said, it was Easter Sunday morning when that strong wind came through and blew the sign down. And since we were closed down because of the pandemic, we was no rush to put it back up because we don't want to advertise as if we're there and we're not there. So now we've been back. We have been back open for over a year now, but a lot of people do not know we're back open now and everything else. So
Is this sign Wi-Fi, so instead of actually having a wire, because I know the elementary school, they don't have a wire going in there and have to physically type in their message.
this
They
one,
have just power, that's all that's there. Everything else is radio frequency.
This one does allow us the capability of Wi-Fi, so whenever the advertising committee board has to make any change, like upcoming revivals or food pantry being open, she can just get on her laptop and update the sign, let them know the food pantry be open this day, closed closet be open this day.
Okay. All right, thank you. I'm good.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anything else, anybody in the audience wants to come down and speak for or against this project? All right, I'm sorry. Come on down and I'll swear you in. Raise your hand and swear. Promise to tell the truth, whole truth, nothing but truth, so help you God.
Yes, I do.
Go ahead. State your name and address, please.
My name's Robert Wayne Cooper. I live at 7 McKenzie Circle. Lived in this neighborhood for 60 years. We've never had any kind of flashing signs. At least the people I've spoke with don't really want any flashing signs. For sure, that's my dad, Patrick Shanahan. I could canvass the neighborhood and ask some other folks. I think the sign they had would be just fine. The church that's right down the street just has what I'm gonna call a regular sign. It's concrete, wood, whatever, type of a sign. I liked it the way it was.
Sir, where do you live in relation to the?
I live at 7 McKenzie Circle.
Is that in the neighborhood where you turn off?
Yes, sir, it
and go?
is. I
Okay.
turn right by that church, take first right, first left, first right. I live at the top of the hill. My daddy lives next door to me. Patrick Shanahan, you go take your first right, take your first left. His house is on the right. Mr. Shanahan was big in keeping up with the neighborhood, keeping the plants planted and all that stuff in the front entrance to the neighborhood there. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else want to say anything? For or against it? Okay. None, go ahead, come in. Do we need to bring the microphone up there? Okay.
We can bring you the phone. We can
Mike,
bring.
Mike,
we
bring
can
the
just-
microphone up there. There you go. Those steps, are a lot of them. Let me swear you in. Raise your hand. Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. State
My-
your name
My name
and,
is Angela Houston, and I live at 903 Seymour Drive, and I don't see a problem with it, because I think we recently lost our sign, the Crestline thing, and people, when I tell people how to get to my house, they can't get there, because that sign been down for like some months now. So I don't think it's a problem for the church to have the sign. Because
All
it'll
right.
let people be like a landmark you can say or something. Yes, sir.
thank you.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Anybody else? Oh, got one more time. I just need to swear you in. There we go. Can you raise your right hand, please? Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. State your name and address, please.
Annette Newsom, 532 Marble Falls Drive.
Okay.
I've been with the church for many years. I've started off with Pastor Newsom, and I'm his wife. And we have done so many things in the neighborhood. And a lot of times when we have done it, some people miss out because they don't, they would not have seen what was going on. And when they find out later, they go, I wish I had known. And also we have certain services that can help the community. And I think that having a sign is a great way to inform others, so to be able to help those that are in the community, like the food pantry, the clothes giveaway. And sometimes people miss it because they may not have saw the little sign that we put up. And I think if we could have it, on the sign, the new sign that we want, it can inform a whole lot of people, because we have so many things that we have been doing in the community for a good while, and like the revivals and the vacation Bible school. Some people don't know that it's going on, but if they knew, they would be, we would have more of a turnout. So I think that it would be more of a benefit, to the community, and not just for us, the members, to have the sign, but it will help the community as well. So I'm for the sign.
Thank you. Got one more. And I'll need to swear you in. Yes.
Okay.
Swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Thank
My
you.
name is Ashlyn Cooper. I live at 7 McKenzie Circle also. That's my dad. I think the concerns maybe with the surrounding community is just that we are in the works of trying to fix the Crestline sign that was at the front of the neighborhood, and it was hit by what we assume is a drunk driver. We're not sure. They fled the scene. And we're not an HOA community, so we're trying to gather the neighbors that we do have that want to help and fix the sign, but it's just taken us a lot longer to do that. I think our concerns are just that maybe once we're finally able to do something with our neighborhood sign, it may be, you might not be able to see it, anymore if there's a big sign in front of it. I think that's where our concerns lie.
Okay. Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, with that,
I do have one question
Okay.
back to the applicant. Is the new sign going in the same location as the old sign? Okay, so where the 4x4s are? Okay. All right. Okay. All right, thank you.
So I have a question for Mr. Paradise.
Yes,
So what I've heard, thank you for the comments, they were helpful. I heard that the intent is to inform people of upcoming events or stuff like that for temporary signs. What's the restrictions on temporary signs? If it's separate from this sign, I guess. If they didn't have this sign that they're proposing, a temporary sign would look like what?
temporary signs, for the most part, are not allowed. If you're talking about the stick in the ground, they're about 2 by 2.
Yeah, it's like a yard sale sign.
Yeah, like a yard sale sign. Typically, those are not allowed.
Not to stay there permanently, but just if you were informing about a
Well, that's,
Easter egg hunt or something.
Or one of the bigger ones that's got the, where you have to put all the letters in there, the, you know, the flashing arrow, you know, here we are.
no, that would be a no-go.
Okay, I was just, you know,
And that is temporary sign, 6 feet, maximum height of 4 feet. So the thing is you're allowed one freestanding sign. That's another freestanding sign, but that's something that we could always work with them on. We always try to work with nonprofits and churches in that way. It's not uncommon for them to have something that, you know, Bible school and that type thing. To answer your question, signage allowed in non-residential districts and uses. Restrictions in this category apply to developments in any zoning district that are currently used, not zoning district, but used for non-residential purposes. If a non-residential use is legally occupying a residentially zoned lot, the director shall determine the closest applicable district and sign requirements. And I would think that that would probably be neighborhood commercial, right off the top, which would allow 60 square feet or 0.25 square feet per linear foot of street frontage, whichever is less, maximum height of 10 feet, and minimum setbacks of 10 feet on the side and 5 feet on the front.
And that's a freestanding sign.
That would be for the freestanding sign, yes, sir. So there is signage that would be allowed to go on that lot.
Anybody else have any questions as part of this public hearing before I close it? All right. Public hearing is closed. Now we'll start the consideration phase. And because some people may have came in late after I read the previous, and I'll read through all of this again. Okay. Per North Augusta Development Code 18.4-5-4-2, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall hear and decide appeals for variances from the requirements of Article 3 zoning districts and Article 13 signs when strict application of regulations would result in unnecessary hardship. A variance may be granted in an individual case of unnecessary hardship if the Board of Zoning Appeals makes and explains in writing all the following. There's 10 items. Number 1, an unnecessary hardship exists. Number 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. Number 3, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. Number 4, because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. Number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential of the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Number 6, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13 signs regulating the size, height, appearance, appearance or location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. Number 7, the Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance to the effect of which would be A, to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district, B, to extend physically in a nonconforming use of land, and C, to change zoning district boundaries shown on the official zoning map. Number 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Number 9, the fact that property may be utilized more profitably should a variance be granted shall not be considered grounds for a variance. And number 10, in granting a variance, the Board of Zoning Appeals may attach to it such conditions regarding the location, character, or other features of the proposed building structure or use as the board may consider advisable to promote the public health, safety, or general welfare. Based on these findings of fact, the Board of Zoning Appeals may approve with conditions, or deny the request. Okay, so do we have to answer in the affirmative to all 10 in order for this variance application to be approved? And if we find one that we do not, one of the questions that we do not answer in the affirmative, with the process stops right there, and then we'll have and the application is denied. So I'll start the consideration now. All right, number 1, an unnecessary hardship exists. Staff note says the applicant states that the restrictions on electronic reader boards adversely impact the ministry's ability to inform and support the North Augusta community with resources and guidance. Any comments there?
Where'd you read that?
Page 4 of 6. You got a lot of paper here. This is the question on the unnecessary hardship exists. I think if the intent is to inform, he doesn't have a sign at all now, and so that he cannot inform. As far as providing information, he's through signage. He does have I would say he does have a hardship there. As of right now, yeah. You okay with that, Mr. Burkholder? Yeah. Okay. So we're okay with question 1. Question 2, there are extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the particular piece of property. The applicant states that the church property is located on a major community throughway adjacent to a mix of commercial and institutional uses. He also states that the sign proposed is smaller than what would be allowed in a comparable neighborhood commercial zoning district. Any comments there?
Yes, you're looking at, correct, you're looking at one, correct, one is the, no, this one, if you approve it, it would be 8 by 4, which is 48, or 32. My math, I never was good at math on the fly. So, what is submitted, that would be, our recommendation as a condition is what you show is what you get. They applied for a 32 square foot sign. They get a 32 square foot sign. Well, he could get a larger sign, but it not be an electronic message center. Two things is, one is it's an electronic message center. That's why it's here. Because electronic message centers aren't allowed in this particular zoning district. Two, if electronic message centers were allowed, the changeable copy portion exceeds what would have otherwise been allowed, which is 50%. So you're asking for a variance for both of those.
That's okay. So this question is regarding to the property, the extraordinary and exceptional conditions pertaining to the piece of property. I got a church located in a residential district, and to me, that's kind of unique.
Before y'all, I mean, the building and all that kind of stuff. Y'all happen to remember when that church was there, just out of curiosity? Yeah, I didn't know if it was kind of, okay, so the church came after the fact.
That's right. So as far as I'm concerned, it is a different, kind of unique. So with the church being in a residential neighborhood like this, I don't know how you feel. Any questions? So I'm okay with this particular one.
You're talking about number three.
Number two.
Oh, two.
Yeah. That's the,
With the property itself.
station.
Trouble by that one a little bit.
Let's just come back to number.
We'll come back to number two. Number three, the conditions do not generally apply to other property in the vicinity. The applicant states that their purpose is nonprofit and non-commercial, unlike the small businesses in the area with lighted signs. Staff notes that there are other businesses with electronic elements and lighting on signage along Old Edgefield Road, but that most of the surrounding lots are residential in nature. I know the school has a lighted sign. Is there a reader board? Is there
Well,
another
you
one?
get, and then you get on down to the dry cleaners and little business node there, as you get closer to Atomic Road.
But they're different. They're zoned different.
They're zoned differently, yes.
And the church at the other end, they don't have one. I know they're doing an addition right now. They have just a standard sign that says who they are. Correct?
I'm not familiar, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
Name sign.
So I'm good with this particular question. I don't know about y'all.
Yes,
I'm okay with this question.
I'm good with it. Okay.
You okay? All right, number three, we're good on. Number four. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. The staff note says the applicant states that prohibiting the electronic reader board limits their ability for public outreach, and the visibility is the key for sharing essential information. This is where I have a problem. I don't know about you guys. I do not think, I have a problem seeing that a difference, this particular sign makes it unreasonably restricts the utilization of the property. I see churches with other signs that are not like this, and it doesn't, that's where I have a problem.
I mean, previously, when there was a sign with the name of the church on it, there was no question there was a church there. put a sign up of that same character, there'd still be no question there's a church there. I realize that if you want messages, then, other than the old fashioned, go out and put messages on a little track, this is the only alternative. But I'm not sure it unreasonably restricts the use of the property as a church if the electronic sign wasn't approved.
What could go, let's just say something happened to the church. Could it be a dentist office in that? I mean, what can go back in there?
Anything that is allowed in an R10 zoning district, which is
Beauty salon?
which is pretty much single-family dwellings. There may be a few odd and end things, but no, a dentist office, a beauty parlor, those commercial activities would not be allowed. And I would add that that is not something they could even seek a variance for.
For the most part, it would basically be a church or a house, residential.
Pretty much. Let me flip to that table. Well, let me read you the description for that zoning district. Okay? The R14 and R10 large and medium lot single-family residential districts. The 10 would be the medium lot. The purpose of these two districts is to recognize and promote the character and particular areas in North Augusta where single-family residential development is the predominant living environment. Also, changing patterns of work and home environment create incentives to view the single-family dwelling as a place of work and residential living activities. And that's for your work at home type things. We see those becoming more and more prominent. The R10 allows single-family detached dwellings, a bed and breakfast by special exception. Tourist homes is permitted. And when you get into commercial, child care is a conditional use. There are, some people do have home daycares, a limit of 6 people or 6 children. And that's pretty much it.
If
Churches is an allowed use there. Let me make clear of that. And some community centers, meeting halls, that type thing can be an accessory building.
Can we get back to the sign that we were talking about? If this was denied,
Yes, sir.
if they come back for a message board, they can't come back for a year, even, let's say it's smaller, half the size, different location.
I had that pulled up to answer your question. And,
That's for another message board, right?
Well,
A
yeah,
reader
this would
board.
be for another message board, or even if it was one of those ones that, I hate to say like Wendy's or whatever, that, the new special that they got to slide the letters in there. What I don't want to do is, at the same time, say no to this sign, and it messes him up for, a year.
Right.
Even if it's for one of those ones that he's got to stick the letters in. He needs a sign. But we don't.
and I agree with you.
So, I don't wanna say no, and it messes him up, but also if there's some little ways, maybe we can table this and we can work something out internally, and they can get a little bit of what they want, the neighbor can get a little what they want.
If any application may be withdrawn by written notice delivered to the Secretary prior to action of the Board of Zoning Appeals, withdrawn applications may be refiled after 12 months and shall be placed on the calendar according to the date refiled. You can continue one time for a good cause. The Board of Zoning Appeals, at your discretion, may grant a rehearing of an application which has been dismissed or denied. A written request for rehearing shall be filed with the Secretary within 15 days after delivery of the order. Said request shall be accompanied by any new evidence which could not have been presented at the initial hearing, or evidence of a clerical error or mutual mistake of fact affecting the outcome. I don't see in here where they could not come back, say they were denied this sign, and they came back wanting an illuminated sign that I'd said no to. But it's not an electronic message center. I think they could do that, because that's not the same application. I don't think they can bring back an electronic message center if you turn it down for a year, unless they apply within 15 days for a rehearing, and y'all allow, with some evidence, and y'all allow that rehearing. And I think you have to wait a year. Does that make sense, or is it clear as mud?
But you don't have to, so it would be a new application for variance.
Right.
Another freestanding sign, say.
Let's say, yeah, if it's not an electronic message center, that's what has gotten us here today.
Mhm.
And it is purely about the size of the sign. So, to me, that's a different application. That's a different ask. The ask tonight is for, one, an electronic message center where one is not normally allowed, and two, for that electronic message center portion to be larger than 50% of the freestanding sign. If it was something other than those two issues, I think they can come back within a year. Does that help?
If it's a different application, is that another fee?
Yes.
If we,
And let me explain, the reason there is another fee is because the fee is to cover the city's cost of the application. We have to do a newspaper advertisement, we go out and post the property, and we send letters to everybody within 200 feet. So, you know, that's and the cost of preparing the meeting and stuff. So that's what that fee is for. So yes, sir, there'd be another fee.
so even if we take the message reader down to 16 square feet, half the size, 50%, we still will be here because it's a message board.
Correct.
But we would only have one variance we were dealing with rather than two, correct?
Correct.
Yeah, I'm just looking at it, there's a couple of them that's gonna probably hang them. You've got to look at us where we're looking at it from, for y'all. We don't want to tie y'all up. And at the same time, we want to make it work, but there's probably gonna be one or two that's gonna hang on these 10 questions. And then you're stuck for a message board for a year before you can come back.
Or you can,
This is kind of like Victory Baptist. We did the same thing there. They were trying to do one. And we were able to table it when they were.
And y'all,
I think that was in a different zoning district, if I remember right.
but I also know that they wanted one elevated like
So
this.
much higher.
oh,
And they basically had to put it almost on the ground, even in a different zoning district.
I mean, I know what they're also going through is, half a mile, quarter of a mile down the road, there's middle school. It's got one.
that was different, under different
And that was
circumstances.
Different sets of property, different, all that kind of stuff. And then I'm with the residences, is it this one, and the next one, So we continue on and table the ones that we think we're gonna have a little, try to talk through it, or
Well, once we come to one that doesn't fly, then we stop. Well, when we stop, then that is a denial. When we stop. And once we stop, then there's a motion to deny.
I will have to, just as background on this particular application, and I'm willing, and I always try to work with applicants, work things out. But this application, they've been working on this since, I think, 2000. And my predecessor sent them to it for a text amendment. And, they were going that route. It got tabled at council and been laid on the side. And my thought was it's more of a variance, because we're talking about one site, one particular place. And to be quite honest, I don't think they had, I think there's more equal or as much chance here as getting the text amendment for the applicant. So they've been working at it for a while. And as the city attorney said, they deserve an answer. Now, if you want to continue it, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure you had the background, and I'm always willing to work with applicants along the way.
So the electronic reader boards, from what I understand, or is it only allowed in a few specific districts?
Correct.
And so to me, it's almost like they were swinging for the fences when they decided to go this route. If they may not have known all the rules, which is probably likely as far as the development code goes. But if you go back with signs that a lot of other churches go back, and if that requires a variance, it does, but I think your chances of getting it are a lot better than a electronic reader board.
And once again, you said the current code, new code as it is written, is still not going to allow these signs in that area.
Correct, sir. As it's written today, subject to change.
All right.
Just a question out of hand. Is there, forget the message board, message center just for a second. Is there, if this sign were there and it was lit by LED or whatever that would said the name of the church, is that still considered an electronic sign, or is that just an illuminated sign?
That would be an internally illuminated sign.
Will we have to be here for that too?
I would think probably so, because looking at it, I had said neighborhood commercial. I also looked at the neighborhood preservation overlay, and I think that one would be more applicable to it, and that would require it to be externally illuminated. And that is something that I'm open for discussion.
So if you let them go, if you look at the code, if they, and let them interpret through the neighborhood commercial, is that what you said?
Neighborhood commercial and neighborhood preservation would be one of those.
And that allows a freestanding sign of some sort.
Yes, sir.
And they conform, they say, well, instead of this, we'll do that, and comply with that, then that's not a variance, is it?
Correct.
Then you don't have to come back.
Correct.
And they can actually get a bigger sign,
Correct.
and they're 60 square feet.
Probably so.
Is this zoned in neighborhood commercial?
No.
No.
This is zoned R10.
Oh, I can, that's right.
I read you a sentence that basically says when the use is non-residential, but it's located in a residential district, the planning director decides the most appropriate signage, you know, depending on the use and where it's located.
Right, so that's a path to get a sign without having to come back here.
Yes, sir.
And that's just a freestanding sign like every other church that complies with the code.
Correct.
Okay,
But
and
with
then,
that freestanding sign, he could put, you know, the letters that he can slide in, his new messages.
I believe so. And I say that because I hadn't drilled down into those two sections, but I would think that that would
I know that
be allowed in there.
put more work on them instead of just having to type it into, on a laptop, but I still want them to get their messages out. Well,
Correct.
You know, I'm just, you know, if the video board doesn't work, we got to have them another alternative, and we don't need to bring one of those trailers with the flashing lights. and
Right.
that kind of stuff. Hey, we're having, you know, food banks open.
If I looked at it as neighborhood preservation, it wouldn't be allowed. If I looked at it as neighborhood commercial, it would be. And they're changeable copies, limited to 30% of the sign area of which it's a part.
Depending on the way they stand the sign, you know, 2 or 3 lines.
so
Right.
there's a path to meet the code without a variance and inform. It's just not it's good, better, and best. The best would have been electronic reader board, but it's not allowed.
Well, good, better, or best depends where you're standing at on the issue.
Yeah, so.
All right, let's continue.
So number 4, so this is, I'll go back and read this first. Because of the conditions, the application of this chapter to the particular piece of property would effectively prohibit or unreasonably restrict the utilization of the property. And the applicant states that prohibiting electronic reader board limits their ability for public outreach, and that visibility is the key to sharing essential information. And I have a problem with this, so I will be a no on this question.
Let's go to the next one. We'll come back to it.
You table that one too? Okay. Is that, okay. All right, the authorization of a variance, number 5, the authorization of a variance will not be a substantial detriment to adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of the district will not be harmed by the granting of the variance. Harm to the character of the district may include structures that are significantly out of scale and the creation or potential for the creation of excessive noise, light, traffic, or incompatible late-night activity. Notes state, the applicant states that the sign provides an opportunity for community outreach and is therefore not a detriment to the community. And staff notes the electronic reader board creates the potential for nighttime light pollution, but that majority of residents are located beyond direct view of the light sign location on the church property.
See, I'm good with that because he's willing to limit it to times. And it's controllable, kind of like what we did, like 9, 10, he's even willing to work even more, so, from a light pollution, I'm not.
I'm okay if you turn it off at night.
Yeah.
You
That's
can,
not like-
you can control the off.
Yeah,
times
that's
of
what they're
running.
doing at the middle school. It's dim and then turn it off at 9.
What did we do earlier?
And we could, he's led to that. So we can
Okay.
put that in a
Well,
stipulation.
if we can, might have to put a condition, with a
Yeah.
condition on the
Yeah.
hours, I guess. I would be okay with that one.
Yeah.
You okay, Bill? Burkholder? Okay. Number 6, in the approval of an application for a variance from the provisions of Article 13, signs, regulating the size, height, appearance, or location of a sign, the Board of Zoning Appeals shall also find that no alternative signage solution that complies with the provisions of Article 13 is available and would provide adequate visibility, recognition, and understanding. Staff notes that electronic reader board signs are allowed in certain zoning districts. It is office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, in industrial districts, but cannot exceed 50% of the sign area. The applicant requests a reader board occupying approximately 72% of the total sign area. Yeah, that too, because there are, he can comply with the code without. There's another alternative, is what I'm getting at. So I will be a no on this one too because of that.
Reduce it to 50%. That was agreeable.
Because that one's really,
That'd be our condition.
yeah, because that's really just pertaining to the actual message board sizes. Lowering it to 50%. We could put that into a condition.
If we prove it otherwise.
So we kind of waffling on that one, but we've already got two more that we got.
Well, I'm still a no because I think there's an alternative.
You're right, there is.
So, how many yeses do we have and how many noes?
I'm okay with it if we put a condition in there. Now, of course, that's changing their request, but they may go along with it.
We'll come back to it.
Table again. Okay. Killing me.
I know. We don't have anything else to do.
All right, number 7. The Board of Zoning Appeals may not grant a variance to the effect of which would be A, to allow the establishment of a use not otherwise permitted in the zoning district. Note say generally signs are allowed in R10 medium lot, single-family residential zoning district. All right, B, so to extend physically a non-conforming use of land. The variance does not extend a physically non-conforming use of land. And C, to change zoning district boundaries shown in the official zoning map. The application does not propose a change to the zoning district boundaries. So, I'm good there, we're good there. Item 8, if the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, the variance should not be granted. Staff notes that electronic reader boards are permitted for churches within office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, and industrial districts, and that the hardship is not imposed by the use of the specific configuration of the lot. It's lot itself outside of zoning.
Good thing Kathy's not here. This one always trips her up.
This is always what it is.
What do y'all think about that?
I mean,
He's choosing this
Hard to
method as a
argue
way
that
to inform. He's choosing this method as a way to inform.
it's hard to argue that that's not self-imposed.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Although their counter argument would be, well, we didn't create the rule that made it against, the ordinance to have a reader board there. But I think it's still, the hardship itself right now is self-imposed by what they've come to the board with.
I'll read this again real slow. Maybe we'll have an epiphany here. Staff notes that so the unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant. The variance should not be granted. and staff notes that electronic read boards are permitted for churches in other districts, office commercial, general commercial, thoroughfare commercial, and industrial districts. And the hardship is not imposed by the use of or the specific configuration of the lot itself.
Let me ask you a question, Mr. Paradise. Do I recall something in our zoning ordinances? It says a church, I may be confusing this with school, I'm not sure, can be in any zone.
Pretty much. I had to go back and look at the use table, but they're pretty, churches can be in pretty much any zone.
Just where people want to put them.
And typically, churches are
Yeah.
in residential districts, just like
True.
schools.
Do they have their own set of, do they have to, if they go into an R10, they got to follow R10 rules? If the school went into an R10, does they have to follow, for the most part, signage and right of ways?
School district, and correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Burkhalter, has to comply with all of our zoning regulations.
That's right.
Schoolhouse planning takes care of the construction, but they have to comply with all the design standards and everything that's in a zoning ordinance.
There may be a little,
Mm-hmm.
getting way out there, rift between what OSF requires, Office of School Facilities, on certain structural requirements and what the city requires. The only time we went there, we worked out an understanding with the city of Aiken, and it didn't become a problem. But,
So, looking through this question, concur that the hardship exists because of the way they inform, they want an ability to inform, but I think there's other alternatives, and they chose this alternative to do it this way, the electronic reader board. That's kind of the way I was seeing it. So that part to me is, you could say, is self-imposed. What do y'all think about that argument?
well, I still go back to the number 8 is what you're talking about.
Yes.
It's hard not to say, based on what they're asking to do, that hardship itself is self-imposed. Asking for something that basically isn't allowed in that district, in that zone.
Mr. Newman? So we got 3 no's on this question? Is that one?
I was okay on 9.
All right, another question
For whatever it's worth.
before we make it official.
Mhm.
Back to what they can have.
Mm-hmm.
So if they do have the one with the 30% of the, putting them regular just letters in there,
Correct.
can that be internally lit? Or can we make that, can we make that assumption now that, hey, this, it's know that it's external, because you made at some point it had to be externally lit. But at the same time, that's actually, to me, uglier that you have 2 light heads sitting way out here shining lights on it, so if it was internally, it would not be as light polluting.
And I share your opinion there. I'm waffling both ways. And I'm skirting an answer here, and I understand that. What I'd like to do is look at some other church signs before I made that final decision. But if we went with neighborhood commercial, it would allow internal illumination. It would allow the reader board, 30%, and I think that would accommodate their needs. That is the way I'm leaning. But I'd just like to double check a few things before I say, yes, this is, I don't ever like making decisions under the gun, so to speak, like in the middle of a meeting.
Put you there, but I didn't know if we
No
did,
problem.
say no, but put a condition on the no, of, hey, they can do.
Well, I think, and I'm not an attorney, defer to the one sitting up there. But I think you have to look at the application and what is applied for, because that's what we've given public notice for. And you haven't given public notice to allow something different. So I'd be careful in going there, if that makes sense. Mr. Burkhalter, you're a lot wiser than me, but if you disagree.
I don't disagree.
Okay.
With that,
Okay.
my field of expertise, but I certainly don't disagree.
So we're saying we have 3 no's on this particular question. Is that what we're saying?
Going back to a question Kevin asked earlier, I'm sure we have it, but does the board have the authority to table an issue until the following meeting?
You do?
Do we have to declare that before we get this far into the process?
You don't?
Okay.
You could table that to the next meeting?
That's,
You know,
Are
we'll
you
drag it.
you know, on a couple of, I hate to drag it out even further, because even if we do, if they lower it to 50%, we're still here because it's not supposed to be a message board. If they get rid of the message board altogether, they can do whatever, they can get us something.
Mhm.
And then, once again, we say next month, and we might have 5 people, we might have 3, we might have none, and we're going right through the same questions again.
If it's a,
Because, we've got 2 that we're, as of right now, that we're going back to, because we think it's gonna hang them up,
mm-hmm,
and this one was actually got 'em.
yeah.
And, I go back to, I would recommend if y'all can move it one way or the other and make a decision.
Yes.
Because it's been since 2000. The applicants deserve an answer, so to speak.
Right. I agree.
Even if it's no, they have the answer and they can make the
They wanna appeal in
Decisions.
15 days, or review.
correct.
Unfortunately, I have to say no.
I'm a no on this question too.
3 things hanging me up. Let's take a long vote.
This one I'm a no.
I'm a no on a second.
Okay. All right, so that's 3 no's on that one. So that means the process stops. So I will read the motion. Gotta pick out the right one here. Based on the conclusions on the findings previously discussed and voted on, the authorization of a variance will be a substantial detriment to an adjacent property or to the public good, and the character of district will be harmed by the granting of variance because of the following fact. The unnecessary hardship is self-imposed by the applicant, and therefore the variance should not be granted. I move that application number ZV 23-002, a request by BE Holy Ministries Incorporated for variance pursuant to section Article 13 signs, section 13.8.3.L.I and 13.8.3.L.I of the North Augusta Development Code for electronic reader board be denied. We have a second. You got a second? We got a motion and a second. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? No. The application is denied. I'm sorry. At least you have an answer now. Any other business we need to talk about?
No, sir, I'm not aware of anything.
Okay. Then close, the meeting's adjourned.